Hey, it's Austin James. Yes, I'm living with diabetes, but it doesn't have to define me. Thanks to the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor, I get real-time glucose readings throughout the day. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor is small and easy to wear, giving me the freedom to focus on my life as a parent and a musician. Now this is progress. You can get a free sensor at freestylelibre.us.
Offer available for people who qualify. Visit myfreestyle.us to see all terms and conditions. Certain exclusions apply. Data on file. Abbott Diabetes Care. For prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
With Uber Reserve, you can book your Uber ride in advance, 90 days in advance. Perfect for all you forward thinkers and planning gurus. Reserve your Uber ride up to 90 days in advance. Uber Reserve. See Uber app for details.
Hello and welcome to Islanders Anxiety from Lighthouse Hockey and the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Dan Saracini. Joining me on this Sunday afternoon via Zencaster is my friend Michael Leboff. And Mike, the Islanders have played 2 games. They have lost them both, one in overtime. Very frustrating way to start a season. The good news is there are still 80 games left. The bad news is a lot of the bad habits that have plagued this team for the last couple of seasons are clearly still present and still need to be worked out. Where are you at right now after these first 2 games? On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not frustrated at all and 10 being like, Hulk mad, where are you in terms of frustration from these after these first 2 games of the Islander season?
Probably in the middle there. I do think there's a really big difference between frustration and panic or hopelessness.
Yeah.
So I think frustration or being frustrated is the right word. And it's not even about like, oh man, they haven't won yet. They're playing Colorado on Monday, so they can be staring down an 0-2-1 start. And honestly, I don't even think the result of Colorado on Monday is going to impact how I feel all that much. And which in a way for a podcast is good, because sometimes when the Islanders play on Monday, like, these things can become, the shelf life can be pretty quick. But in this case, it's not, because what I think a lot of Islander fans were looking forward to, and myself included, was hoping for, was that the Islanders, it wouldn't be that 82 game grind again. This would be a season where they storm out of the gates and collect some points and put some points in the bank and build up some equity in the standings. And we don't have to sit on the edge of our seat from October 10th to April 9th. And the team keeps saying over and over, every training camp. This is why I do not get caught up in the preseason, and I do not try to get caught up in training camp either, because it just doesn't matter. You could have the best training camp in the world. As soon as the puck gets dropped and you leave Dylan Gunther wide open and he scores, it counts. It's a real thing that happens in the standings. Whereas in training camp, just seeing Matt Barzal and Anthony Duclair on a 2-on-1 against Aiden Fulp doesn't matter. Like, I just don't care about that stuff at all. It doesn't translate into the season at all, I don't think. And so when the slate gets wiped clean and the Islanders came out on Thursday night, I hope everybody kind of just forgot that anything that ever happened in the preseason, because it looked like the Islanders, who by all accounts had a good preseason, forgot.
Yeah.
And they start over, and we they started from square one, I should say, and now we're back into it. And already it's a grind. Like it's already the first week of the season is going to be, we're going to have to be on the edge of our seats because the Islanders lose on Monday. Then they're staring down what is essentially the first must-win game of the season. And you and I talked about this when the schedule came out in July. Like we had that St. Louis Blues game circled. Or like,
Yeah.
if they'd failed to win one of those first two games against one of those first three games against three decent opponents, and Utah looks like they're definitely a shot out of a cannon this season. Utah, Dallas, and Colorado, like that Blues game is huge because you can't be coming home 0-3 or 0-2-1, and playing a Montreal Canadiens team who you should beat with like, oh God, like we could go 0-4 in our first games. And yeah, it's not a literal must-win game, but if you listen to the show, you know what we mean. And I was just hoping that we wouldn't have to live our Sundays and our Mondays, the first Sunday of the season and the first Monday of the season, beautiful days outside, thinking, oh, God, like they got to get something out of these next two games already. It's October 13th, so yeah, it's not. But that's not panic. It's just more being annoyed that we're already in the situation when I was hoping like maybe they'll buy us a couple weeks this year and not have to worry about this stuff within like the first fortnight of the year.
Yeah. Nope. Yeah, it's annoying more than anything else. And we're going to talk about the Colorado and St. Louis games coming up, because the worst thing is, let's say they lose both of those and they've got to beat Montreal at home. That's might as well be the final nail in the coffin for their season, because as we know, they always have problems with the Habs. They almost never beat them at UBS Arena, which sucks too. And it's I'm only kidding. Obviously, there's still plenty of time left, but it's incredibly irritating. And especially when every single year we hear the same thing about, we want to get off to a good start. We don't want to be fighting tooth and nail at the end of the season for a playoff spot. We want to be in good position midway through the season. Well, a way to not be in good position is to not start 0-2 or 0-1-1, which they are now. Before we dive into the last games and the current games and the upcoming games, I should say, reminder that we are on Patreon at patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety. Membership gets you ad-free episodes, bonus podcasts, written posts, and a whole lot more. Or you can join for free to get announcements and our weekly release calendar. So sign up today, patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety. Okay, let's start with the home opener, season opener, which I think was the more irritating and frustrating of the two games. Of course, it was a 5-4 overtime loss to Utah. If I'm not mistaken, Utah beat the Rangers 6-5 in overtime, or maybe even 5-4 again, or something like that last night, Saturday night. So it's not the only, Islanders aren't the only team that this has happened to. Obviously, the Utah had come in already having played a game, having beaten Chicago already. And are now everybody's second favorite team, I guess, despite not having a name, which is still really annoying. The Islanders had a lot of good energy to start, and in fact, Anthony Duclair scored the first goal of the season, which you predicted somewhere like months ago, and I just had to text you. I was like, "Oh my God, they did it!"
I completely forgot. And if you're going to ask me if I made any money off of that prediction, the answer is no, I did not. I forgot I even made it. You and someone else had also sent me a message. Funny. I was like, I don't even remember saying it, which. Just gives you an idea of what these super specific predictions, how long the shelf life on them are too. But that game was annoying.
Yeah, it might have been on a mailbag episode. I'm not even sure where you said it, but I do remember you said it, and you were right. But yeah, from that point on, it was not a fun game, and it was a very annoying game. Simon Holmstrom missed an open net at one point because Connor Ingram had kind of gone behind the net, and this would become a theme for the next game too as well. And it just kept getting sloppier and sloppier. Lawson Krause tied the game on a power play late in the period. Of course, the Islanders went over 2 on the penalty kill. Another annoying thing about this game. Second period was even sloppier. Sergachev scored, although they thought Barrett Hayton got a tip on it. Just junk. Just the whole period was garbage. Third period was better. Bo Horvat scored on the first shift from Duclair. J.G. Pageau gives the Islanders a shorthanded goal and a lead, and then on the same power play, Dylan Guenther ties the game, of course. Max Siplikov, with a couple of minutes left, scores what looks like the game-winning goal in really dramatic fashion, but then 13 seconds later, Josh Doan ties the game because a complete defensive breakdown everywhere, all over the place. And then in overtime, the Islanders didn't do a damn thing. until Dylan Gunther scores in the slot after a Noah Dobson turnover. Really, really bad sequence of events there for Noah in the third period in overtime. And I mean, the only thing was they played like assholes. And I'm not afraid of saying that in game one because they did. And we have seen this before. And I said as much on Twitter, this did not feel like a game one. This felt like game 176 of this sort of post-Trotz, or at least late Trotz / post-Trotz era of 2 seasons, 11 playoff games plus 1 game now. That's what it felt like. I've seen this movie before, and I don't like it. I don't care if it's the first game of the season or the last game of the season. I'm tired of watching this. It just was disjointed, sloppy. The blown leads, the bad penalty kill, just the, not making things happen the wrong time, not coming up big. And this is, what I think you were kind of getting to before. Like, this is your home opener, man. What are you doing? Like, you can't lose this game like this anyway. You can't. What are we talking about? This is a team that with real expectations, and to come out in your home opener like that. Josh Bailey's in the building. Alexei Yashin's in the building. Sean Bates is in the building. They built a whole damn lighthouse with smoke effects inside of UBS Arena. And this is how we reward everybody and kick off this, season of excitement. This was incredibly annoying and incredibly frustrating. And I was still mad about this the whole next day, which is, I don't think has ever happened in a home opener before or a season opener before. You were actually at the game. So I wonder what your frustration level was like having watched this live, because at home I was pretty pissed off.
Well, we were robbed of joy, which is the annoying thing, right? Like, you're the home opener. You've been around the NHL long enough, and you've watched the Islanders long enough. Like, walking into the building on a home opener isn't a guarantee that you win, and that's the same for any team.
They almost never win their home opener.
Yeah, I think Chris King said when the Islanders opened their season at home, they're like something like 3-6-3 overall all time, or there's something really bad. But it's the home opener, it's the season opener. And I ran into a couple of people in the concourse before, and one of them said, "Is like Islanders season opener, man, it's the best day of the year." And I can't agree more with that statement. It is, because it's not like everyone's got a blank slate and hope springs eternal. Like, there's a really big difference between like that and just being happy that this is back. Like, we love the Islanders. We love watching the whole fan experience. Like, it's part of our life again. It kind of puts everything into place again in your daily routine. It's an absolute lie to say it, but like, they bring some stability back into your life somehow, even though they actually do the exact opposite. But the point is that, like, it feels better to have the NHL season back and the Islanders back. And then you sprinkle in that there is some reasons to believe that this team should be good. They are they're basically a 50-50 shot in betting markets to make the playoffs, but I think most of us who, at least if you're looking at the glass half full, think that sells them a little short. There are some people in the hockey world who agree with that statement, others who disagree, but like, there was actual legitimate reasons to be optimistic. You walk into the building, there's a new lighthouse in the concourse. Josh Bailey lights it. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought it was just like a nice touch. Like it's hokey. It is extremely hokey, but that's the Islanders are hokey. Like, you gotta. I was happy to see like nobody was like that. That's stupid, because I mean, yes, like in reality, of course, it's stupid to have some like a forward player put a lantern on a table and light up a lighthouse, and it makes a big glaring noise, and people cheer for it. Yes, it is very strange and hokey, but that's the Islanders. Like, they are that. And I thought it was like really, really nice touch. And just to hear, I think it was Roger Luce who's still doing the in-arena PA announcements.
It's Alex Anthony. Yeah.
Alex Anthony. Sorry.
Same. Yeah. He's been there for a long time.
Yeah. He said for everyone to like turn their attention to the lighthouse and welcome back Islander great Josh Bailey. And just to hear that, like, honestly, sent some goosebumps running down my body. Like, I've never heard Josh Bailey referred to as an Islander great, like out loud, not tongue in cheek, or not by somebody named Mark Scheifele, right? Like, it's the whole thing. It was building towards some like a nice night, and the crowd was great. Um, the just the introductions were great. It was really nice. Like the whole evening was heading in the right direction. There was a whatchamacallit, the Northern Lights were visible. I didn't see them. I was too busy looking at the Islanders wall with all the trading cards on them and sending you pictures of like Eric Manlow and Darren Quint, which
Right.
just keep that name in mind. But
Mm.
we get to the game, starts sloppy, whatever. It's first game of the season. Islanders score on the power play. It's Duclair. Building's buzzing again. But yeah, like you said, from that point on, they started playing like assholes, as you said. And the way I looked at it was they are stuffing every little bit of 2023, 2024 season into this one game.
Yeah.
They played the hits and
Yeah.
it's the not a great start. Then they go ahead, they cough up the lead with a minute left in the period, of course. Then they fight their way back into the game, only to give like they score a shorthanded goal at with Pajot and Holmstrom connecting. The other team scores on that same power play. Yeah. They go like you said, over 2 on the penalty kill. They take a lead in the third period. They blow that lead 10 seconds later. Noah Dobson has his phone out and it's taking Instagram pictures instead of playing the game. Like it's.
I forgot one other thing. They had a 4-minute power play that they did nothing with.
Yeah, they went 1 for 6 on the power play, including a full double minor.
Yeah.
Anders Lee gets smacked in the face and is bleeding, and that's not good. As we like when he fought that devil late in that game where they blew it. If Anders Lee's bleeding and trying to like rally the troops, it's never a good sign, especially in a home opener. But like, it looks like they're going to get out of there with a win because Max Siplikov you want to be talked about being robbed of joy. Like this guy scores. He was probably their best player from start to finish in the entire game. Scores a great goal. Brock Nelson with a great play on that. And you're just like, wow, like that's the kind of stuff that you think about going into the building. Like, man, imagine Max Siplikov scores in his debut and Duclair scores in his debut. Like it's what a good start to the season. And it's just taken from you. Not even we didn't even get a chance to sit down. And he didn't even get like a great salute from the crowd when his goal was announced because the Coyotes had just scored. Like it was just so Islanders that everything was heading in like the right direction. That they tried their best around the game to make it a wonderful experience and still you walk out of there, like you said, you're just mad. You're and the whole next day too. I don't even know if I was mad, but I was just like I don't want to. I wasn't prepared to start doing this again. Right? Like it's day 1 of the new season, home opener. Like I shouldn't be already in my my back shouldn't be against the wall already in this early in the season, and it was, and brought me back down to earth pretty quickly. That this is just what this team is right now. It's they're gonna have to fight through these kind of things all season long, and that means that we all have to get ready for it, which sucks. It's it's like it's just nothing's gonna come easy here.
No, and I agree with everything you said. Like I just the most annoying thing to me was that like I came into this season, I think a lot of people came into this season legitimately excited. And in one game, that all evaporated. It evaporated because we've seen, again, this movie before. And it's all stuff that we've seen before. Every single thing that we talked about is stuff that we have become intimately familiar with over the last couple of seasons. And that's, if they had lost, this sounds kind of stupid to say, but like, had they lost in a different way, I don't think the excitement would have necessarily been lost. Yeah. Like if Connor Ingram had made 50 saves, right? And it was just like, oh shit, this guy was just like, hey, oh, what are you going to do? But they looked great, and it happens. And, I mean, we got maybe a taste of that. You can kind of think of the Dallas game, which we're going to talk about in a second. But they lost in the same way that they lost all the time last year and the year before and in the playoffs. And it's like, wait a minute, hold on a second. What are we doing here? And it was really, really just the worst possible case. And I couldn't even, the funny thing about the Siplikov thing is in the 13 seconds it took them to score that goal and then give up the lead. I thought in my head about, and this is like a light flashing before your eyes moment. Like I all I could picture was like the Sportsnet sort of panel and people being like, wow, how about this Max Siplikov guy? Maybe, the Islanders have found that goal scorer that they've been looking for. And, what an import, what a signing he's going to be. What, he scored, picking the right time to score the game winner. Maybe he's like a big time player, and maybe they'll end up having a great season in spite of all of us that picked against them. And then bang,
Yep.
Josh Doan scores the tying goal.
It's so funny that you said that. I had the same exact thing flash through my head, basically, as like, wow, like the Islanders, this is a great moment, like a moment that will be kind of just clipped for forever. Like, especially if this guy goes on to be something good. Like, here's how he announces himself. Here's Max Siplikov announcing himself to the NHL. Game-winning goal for the Islanders.
Right.
Well, like in my head, it was like 1999 Sports Center with like Stuart Scott or like Hockey Tonight on ESPN2. And by the time that daydream was over, and it's funny. I was with my dad. I turned to him and I was like, all I said to him was, stuff like that just doesn't happen to the Islanders. And as I was sitting down, and of course, the Coyotes score, and he goes, stuff like that does.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And I was like, yep. It was just so good.
Really just the worst. But so just the exact way you didn't want to start the season. And again, like I don't want to keep harping on it, but this did not feel like a game one. It felt like just a continuation of the same games we've seen.
Nobody looked. I didn't leave there being like, okay, like Siplikov, Duclair side, because they weren't here last year, but of the players who weren't,
they were the two best ones for sure.
Yeah, that's true too. Like, which is like both a good and a bad thing, I guess. And then you leave that building, and I didn't think like, well, I mean, Nelson played well and Palmieri because they were with Siplikov, and you can say like Horvat and Barzal looked okay, but they're supposed to be. So like, I didn't like, there was nobody else that stood out at all. Like the goal that they scored right after Siplikov's, like Noah Dobson, I don't know what on earth he was doing. I don't like Cizikas then thought that didn't realize like Dobson was checking his phone. So he forgot to cover a guy. Romanov didn't realize that Dobson was taking a selfie, so he went to the wrong place. Like there was just nobody picked up on that at all. And in the penalty kill, I can almost forgive them for letting the first power play goal in because Pajot went on a rush and the puck kind of just hopped off his stick, and that was just like a bad break that led to and anytime anything like that ever happens with the Islanders, like it's going to end up in the back of the net. And I can almost forgive them for that one, but the second power play goal was just unbelievable. That I don't know what Adam Pelech was doing. I got a text right away from our friend Frank, who's like, Tommy Abelin's already on thin ice with me. Like I can't blame anyone for feeling that way because like you said, had they lost that game in a different fashion, I don't think we would be frustrated. We would have just been like, whatever. That's just how it goes in hockey. Like, because that is how it goes in hockey. But that's what the Islanders do is not how it goes in hockey.
No,
like that's just a completely unique way of doing things. And then you would think that coming into game one of the new season after having a historically bad penalty kill, one that really held you back and made you a seventh place wild card team that had to fight till the last day of the season to get into the playoffs, from being like a team that was challenging for second or home ice advantage in the playoffs. You'd think, okay, like we know that this power play, the penalty kill sucked last year. We got a new coach. We got our assistant coach fired because it was so bad. We gotta be on it here. And there were three guys on one side of the ice, and one of the best shooters in the league. That we joked about the Islanders not having like a Ford Performance Center where they go over, they sit in those big movie theater seats and look at film. I can guarantee you that before that game, everyone said, hey, this number 11 guy on Utah is shooting the lights out since he's joined the league. Like, don't let him have the entire half of the ice wide open. Just pretend he's Alex Ovechkin. And the Islanders did it not once, but twice. and like, that stuff just makes you more mad than anything. Cause you're like, that's stuff that it's so preventable. The whole thing was like a preventable calamity.
Yeah.
And
again, I said this on Twitter. There are junior teams that can hold leads and kill penalties, and yet the Islanders can't seem to do that, and it's incredibly frustrating. And again, the other thing too, and we're going to move on to Dallas here in a second, but like a lot of the basis for the excitement of the season was well, they're going to have a full training camp under Patrick Waugh. And, he
Right.
took over halfway through the season. It's tough to kind of get those habits out of there. You just kind of try and right the ship and move things along. And they did that. But now we can start from scratch, talk about new systems, get stuff in place, get them, everybody kind of on the same page. And everybody was on 100 different pages at the same time. And it just, that's how that happens. But
Despite them all saying,
Yeah.
the party line before the season started was like, we got to get off to a good start.
Yeah.
Adam Pellick and Ryan Pollock were like, oh, we got to get our swagger back. Yeah, this is what I was saying. Like, none of that stuff matters. Like, the entire the Islanders, they get made fun of for their cone of silence. I want it to be taken to the umpteenth level during training camp and preseason. I want them to play behind closed doors. I don't want anyone talking to the media at all, because I just don't want to hear that stuff ever again. Because it's like, I don't believe you when you say like, oh, like, yeah, we're going to get our swagger back. Well, then why are you leaving Dylan Gunther wide open over there? And when you just took a lead, you just took a lead, and now you're just going to let this guy score.
Why does every stretch pass turn into a goal against? Why? Why does that happen? Oh, there's a guy 78 feet away. He's going to get the puck right on his stick, and he's going to score. Like, that happens every time.
Why is Noah Dobson going to the photo booth? Like, what is going? Like, what, can we just get him to play hockey?
Right.
It was
right.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, like, when you left that game outside of Duclair Siplikov, was there any other player that like made you kind of proud to watch that night?
No,
I really don't think so.
No,
like even the fourth line looked like they just were completely vanilla. Like Wallstrom doesn't.
Yeah, I want to get into Wallstrom in the next game, but
Okay.
no. I thought Duclair and Sipikov were good. I mean, Duclair and by extension Horvat and Barzal I thought was good. I thought the second line I thought Palmieri and Nelson were terrible in this game in particular. They were better against Dallas. I thought they were terrible in this game. Nelson in particular looked like he was. I know he's got a lot of kids. Maybe he was up late or something like that, but he just looked absolutely terrible. Sipikov looked great. The third line, outside of that shorthanded goal, didn't really do much for me. And then, like I said, the fourth line was all over the place too. You would think that McLean and Cizikas would have had a lot more chemistry, but they didn't. But again, this is another problem, and we've talked about this ad nauseum over the last couple of seasons, and that is that these guys have known each other and played together for the last decade, and sometimes it looks like they don't even know each other. They just showed up off the street and are completely, the fact that the first line has as much chemistry as they do with a brand new guy on it just goes to show you how little chemistry a lot of these other guys have, despite having, played with each other for years and years and years. But we need to move on to game two. So that was game one, hugely disappointing. So we move on to game two, Saturday night in Dallas, Dallas Stars home opener. And yes, the Stars are a Stanley Cup contender. Again, I pick them every year to win the Stanley Cup. Maybe I'll be right one of these years. Semyon Varlamov started again. Ilya Sorokin, not 100%. He did back up both games. Should be noted that I thought in the first game, Varlamov was okay. Wasn't terrible, but he wasn't great either. He didn't do a lot to save some of those goals, but he was also hung out to dry too. And I hate to say this, but like going into this game, I didn't think the Islanders had a chance in hell of winning this game. And I was right, but in a way that was a little bit different. So they ended up losing 3-0. And by a lot of the underlying metrics, they were the better team. They had more shots. They had more high danger chances. They had 11 high danger chances to Dallas's 6. So, I mean, almost doubled them up. They had 62. They had 30 shots for, and Dallas only had 23. And their Corsi for was 61%. So, like, all these numbers are terrific. But if you can't score, what good are they? And so there was a lot of stuff that, like, Duclair misses on the other side. He's right at the edge of the net, and he just barely misses, like an inch and a half too far, and kind of shooting into the side of the net. What happens? The play comes back the other way, and Tyler Seguin scores in the slot immediately. And that's exactly the way the game went. Sipikov had a chance with Ottinger out of the net. He missed it. In the second period, Jamie Benn scores from the slot after the puck bounced around a little bit. I think Kyle Palmieri had a chance to get it out of there. Puck bounces around, gets right to Jamie Benn. Benn, he scores. Bo Horvat hits a post a few minutes later. Puck bounces, ricochets off of Ottinger's back, and goes wide. The third period was basically all Islanders, but Jake Ottinger was terrific. Brock Nelson was standing in the crease. The puck was in the crease. It was right there. All he had to do was whack it in. Somehow it doesn't go in. They pulled Varley really early. They pulled him with about 3 minutes to go, and somehow didn't give up an empty net goal right away, which I guess is progress for these guys. But they did eventually give up an empty net goal to Tyler Seguin. I don't even know if they got any chances with that empty net. I know at one point Barzal dumped it in, and then just sort of like went to get it without a ton of urgency. And I was extremely mad about that. I thought Varlamov was pretty good. Again, he made 24 saves, but Ottinger was obviously way better. Dobson was very sloppy again. They did, however, go 2 for 2 on the PK, which again is progress. So we talked about this before we came on. I don't think you could say they played like assholes in this one, because they did in a lot of ways had the better of the play, carried the play for the most part. In fact, if I was a Stars fan, I think there would have been parts of that game would have been like, what's going on here, boys? Like, what's happening? Why are we, is all the play in our end? That would have been a little bit better, but just a couple of sloppy plays. Dallas buried their chances, and that was that. And the game was over. And, everybody in Dallas gets to go home happy for their season opener. And the Islanders, whereas, 2 nights earlier, nobody in Elmont got that same thing. Again, like you said, they were robbed of joy. And so it was a little bit different, but ultimately, you end up getting shut out in game 2. Like, really sucks. It's just not how I want to start the season.
Yeah, I think it's that simple, right? It's just not how any of us wanted to start the season, and we all were kind of hoping and pushing towards something better than this. And Kyle Palmieri said as much.
Right.
Like, I think after the game, he said, like, not a dream start. And we talked all training camp about getting off on the right foot, and they didn't do that. And now they have a pretty daunting task ahead of them in Colorado. And then the thing that sucks about that game is, like, so that game is Monday tomorrow, and then there's if they lose that, then you got a whole Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to get to before they play St. Louis. And that's it. It's already horrifying stuff 3 or 4 days into the season. And the thing that sucks about that is, like you're trying to convince yourself not to be too upset about the way they played in Dallas, because it looked like they played like they did a decent job of managing the game and like keeping themselves in it all game, but they didn't create much until the third period either. So it's like, the numbers look good because they dominated that third period, but they were already down 2-0. Like, so they had to, like, if they didn't, if they went out like, like wimps in that third period, I would be really mad. And they kind of saved face a little bit, and they didn't score. And the reason I'm starting to get like more upset about it, thinking about it as we're talking about, is because of the game that happened on Thursday night, right? Like, if you hold on to that lead and against Utah, like, we're having a completely different conversation about this Dallas game. We're like, wow, like, they get the win, and then they have a decent effort against a Stanley Cup contender, and they lose. That's just hard luck, but good signs. Maybe they can keep build off that into Colorado. And now it's not. You're just like, well, it doesn't matter. You blew your opportunity for the benefit of the doubt already. So I don't know what to tell you.
In a vacuum, the Dallas game can be accepted. Like, okay, you lost to a pretty good team. You threw everything you had at the goalie, and it just nothing went. What are you going to do? Bad luck. It happens. But coming off of Thursday's game makes it much worse. Yeah. Let me ask you a question here, because I don't have the answer to this, and I'll ask you, and I'll ask our listeners as well. We have seen teams that are rush teams that get all their goals off the rush. We've seen teams that are like power play merchants that don't do much 5-on-5 and score all the time on the power play. We've seen volume shooting teams that just throw the kitchen sink at the net and get rebounds, and they score a lot that way. What is the Islanders' offensive philosophy? Like, what is their plan for scoring goals? Because I don't know what it is. I just don't know. Some teams are counterattack teams. Like, the Islanders used to be a counterattack team, and like the focusing on the quality chances from the best spots. Those days are over, which is fine. But what is the philosophy now on how to score goals? What do they want to do? I don't get
it. I think it's a pretty good question. I think that if you ask Patrick Waugh, he would probably say he wants to be a team that like keeps play alive and wears opponents down by having the puck on their sticks, and holding on to possession, and by kind of counter pressing anytime that they turn the puck over, doing whatever you can to win it back, and turning pucks over in the neutral zone, and just basically wearing teams out till they make a mistake. Didn't see much of that in the Dallas game at all. Like, they struggled. I thought they were getting way too much credit from the numbers.
Yeah. Everything was way outside. They're taking point shots from the parking lot that are just kind of, going to nowhere. There's a lot of one and dones. Like, they'll take the puck and do nothing with it.
Right, they did have opportunities. Like Horvat hit the
Right.
post. Duclair had a
Yeah,
pretty
right
open net.
outside, yeah.
Like they did. Like they had chances, but like that's going to happen every game. And it
Mm.
the Stars took their chances, which came off of Islanders' mistakes. I you could like the Islanders were really good in that third period, but at the same time, I didn't really see like the Stars sweating much. Like it
No.
wasn't one of those games like we'd see where the Islanders, they're up like the Hurricanes game too. Like where it's like,
Yeah.
oh god, like the Islanders are just trying to hold on for dear life here. That was not what was going on with Dallas. Like they were under pressure, but they were very calm and collected under that pressure. Their goalie played well, and um, I don't think that you can give the Islanders too much credit for that effort just based on the numbers. You could say like they didn't play bad, which is fine, but after what happened on Thursday night, you need to ask for better than that. And um, it was like a tough pill to swallow too, just because like the entire NHL is going on Saturday
Yep.
night. There were like 12 other games, and you're just watching teams like. Here's another question for you: like teams like Columbus went and they beat Colorado. The
Yep.
Chicago Blackhawks beat Edmonton to make the Oilers 0-2.
The Penguins got shellacked by the Rangers, then came back and won their next game in Detroit.
Right, yeah, it was like these teams were having responses, pulling surprising results, and I think back to last year, and I'm trying to think. Like the Islanders won 39 games last year. They lost 16 in overtime, and if you like look through that game log, I'm trying to pick out games where the Islanders really surprised us. Because like you, I woke up. One of the things that really was that I don't miss about hockey season that you get reminded of pretty quickly when you're in it is like you wake up in the morning and you just have like an immediate feeling about how a game is going to go, and when it's a bad feeling, when you feel like oh man, there's no chance the Islanders are going to win, you're convinced that you're never wrong when it's a bad feeling. But when it's the opposite, like I felt going into the Utah game, I was like I had a good feeling all day. That feeling is very hard to trust, but you can always trust the bad feeling. But anyway, like you look back to last year, I'm looking at like the results and I'm trying to find some of the games where I went into it or that I just didn't think they had a chance in hell in winning, and it's hard to find. I think you can maybe say the Dallas game where they won in overtime on the road, because that was the first Dallas game when they won in overtime was Waz's first game, so. I wasn't shocked that they won that one for the new coach bounce. But that's really it. Like the Islanders weren't that great as a big underdog last year.
Yeah.
And that was one of their calling cards when they were good, was they were really good as big underdogs. They were pulling surprising wins out all over the place. Like I didn't really see much of that last year at all. And it was annoying looking around the league, seeing other teams pull these surprising results off and being like, when are the Islanders are going to need to do this? Like, are they?
Yeah.
They didn't do it very well last year, and I thought maybe they would do it last night, but they don't do it, and now they're looking at and they're going to have to do it on Monday. Like nobody's going to think I don't think the Islanders can beat Colorado on Monday, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that the Avalanche just gave up 14 goals in their first two games and lost like 8-4 and then 6-4 to the Knights and the Blue Jackets. So I would be shocked if the Islanders don't get their best effort on Monday night, and they'll just be like, well, what are you going to do? Like, we just got to batten down and keep moving forward. It's still early, but as we've learned a lot, like it gets late early on Long Island, like every year it gets late early. Like I don't want last year. And also like last year they started 2-0. So and they were very good in those two games. There was a 3-2 win against the Sabres, and then a 2-0 win against the Coyotes. And so like the positive of this all is to say, well, those first two games went in that direction. Great defensive play. Like if I were to tell you like 3 weeks later the Islanders would be the worst defensive team that in the league, like you'd call me crazy. So like you could say that, but at the same time, like they're still 0-1 now. Like they at least in those games, like those 4 points came into play huge later on in the year. Like the Islanders already squandered 3.
Right.
Like they've already
Yeah.
given up 3 points. So,
Yeah,
I don't.
it's
Yeah,
no, it just sucks. And the other thing too, real quick before we take our break is we're going to talk all about the Colorado game on the other side of the break. But the things that happen at this point is, whenever they get off to these starts, which again is fairly often, is like you start getting the divide of people that are like, oh, people who are worried about that are crazy, and then you get people who are like frothing at the mouth and want to fire everybody and trade everybody and get rid of everybody at the trade deadline and all that stuff. And it's like I think we're kind of more in the middle. We're very frustrated. We're very irritated, but we understand that there's 80 games left, and there's still plenty of time to sort things out. But again, it's just like it's the way that this team loses is such old hat at this point that I don't want to watch it anymore. And to get back to a point you made a few minutes ago about the sort of cone of silence, like we always hear about these athletes that are, 32 Thoughts is not as good as it used to be. I don't want to get into a whole thing, but like Elliot Friedman was telling a story about some guy, I forget who he was talking about, who was like super competitive, and he was just like constantly always competing with other people. And it was like, sounded a little bit unhinged. We've been seeing this clip of Connor McDavid yelling and screaming at his teammates after losing a game in the Stanley Cup Finals all summer long. Yes, that's a game in the Stanley Cup Final, and it's not a perfect apples to apples comparison between, game 1 and 2 of the season. But like, where is that from the Islanders? Like, where is the story about somebody turning to his teammates and being like, what the fuck are we doing out there? Like, why do we keep losing these games in the same way? Why can't we kill a penalty? Why can't we hold a lead? Why can't, we get some bounces to fall for us? Like, where is that? And I know we're 2 games into the season, but like, we're really not. We're 177 games into this. And not a single person seems to have come out and said like, why are we doing this to ourselves? I don't understand. Why do we keep losing games in the same way? Why do we keep not getting off on good starts? Why do we keep, putting ourselves behind the 8 ball like this really early? Why do we keep finding ourselves in these situations? Why am I asking you that question on a Saturday afternoon from our respective homes on a podcast? And I don't hear anybody asking that question in the Islanders locker room. Like I just really don't understand it.
I know and you wonder how much of it is like, yeah, we've talked about that stuff all last season. Like, I think Bo Horvat said, or Ryan Pollock, somebody in the post game against Utah, they were like, they were asked about the penalty kill, and they were like, well, it's not last season anymore. Well, kind of is.
Yeah. I
got news for you. I got news for you. That game looked straight out of it. Like you guys went up on stage and said, "Here come the hits," and got off the stage, and we all left. And
if it's not, then prove it. Like that's all I gotta say.
Yeah, and to kind of put a bow on that thought, last year obviously the hockey gods did not smile down all that kindly on the Islanders, and they did smile down unbelievably kindly on the Islanders' biggest rival, and the Rangers. And it was not lost on me that all summer I was like, you know what, maybe this year that will change, and maybe this season that will change, and the Islanders will catch some breaks, and the Rangers, maybe they won't. And the Islanders played the Utah Hockey Club in their season opener, and there is a puck that got rimmed around, which you alluded to before. It pops out right to Kyle Palmieri. He shoots, and Connor Ingram makes like a Superman save, a miracle save, right? 2 nights later, the Utah Hockey Club plays the New York Rangers in their home opener. And Keandre Miller, he rims a puck around the boards, and it hits a stanchion. Connor Ingram goes behind the net to play it, and the puck just goes into the net. And I saw that, and I was like, what a just a slap in the face from the hockey gods right away. Like, if you think that just because you were a little cursed one season means that you'll get the rub of the luck the next, you're like me, very naive, because the hockey gods are relentless. And that was just an unbelievably early sign of what's to come, I think, in terms of how things usually bounce for these two teams. I couldn't believe it, how on the nose that was.
It might be. I hope you're wrong, but it's possible. I mean, God knows we've seen it before. Okay, we're going to take a break, come back, and look at the next 3 games coming up, and a couple of other little newsy items from the Islanders that from before the season started, and give you a preview of what's coming up later this week. Okay, so meet us on the other side. Thanks. And now a word from our sponsors. First is always VintageIceHockey.com, where you can get t-shirts, hoodies, jerseys, and more featuring over 100 classic hockey logos. Vintage Ice Hockey now carries a full line of Islanders Anxiety merch featuring our blue and orange brain logo, as well as our Al Arbor and the Island shirts. And as always, our portion of the sales go directly to the Center for Dementia Research. That is VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. They offer a Rosé, a Pinot Grigio, and a Pinot Noir that was named a Top 100 Best Buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. All are delicious, priced at less than $15 a bottle, and available at local wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com. Please drink responsibly.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Go to Blinds.com for 40% off site-wide. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
So the Islanders have 3 games this week, 2 more on the road, and then they're back at home on Saturday night. They play the Colorado Avalanche in Denver on Monday, the day you're listening to this. And then Thursday, they are in St. Louis. And then on Saturday, again, they're home hosting the Montreal Canadiens. Real quick before I forget, if you get a chance, head over to the New York Post and read Ethan Sears' article on Waz's return to Colorado. It's pretty interesting. He basically talks about how he was humbled after leaving the Avalanche and resigning, and how he feels that was kind of a mistake, and he paid for it. And it's really changed his philosophy on life and coaching and hockey. And sounds pretty good. It's the story we heard these stories last year too, but it was pretty cool. And I'm interested to hear what his reception will be. I was actually talking to my wife about this yesterday, and she's like, "So you think they'll boo him?" And I'm like, "Well, Patrick Waugh, the player, wouldn't get booed. Patrick Waugh, the coach, might, but they did win a Stanley Cup after he left, and that bad season resulted in them getting Cale Makar. So if I was an Avalanche fan, I would be moved on by that point, but we'll have to see. It's going to be pretty interesting, so we'll have to watch out for that. But the thing about the Avalanche, we'll talk about the Blues and Habs in a second. The thing about the Avalanche, and Mike, you alluded to this a few minutes ago, is that they have also not gotten off to a particularly good start this season. They're in dead last right now. They're 0-2. They've given up 14 goals to Columbus and who was it, Nashville or somebody else? Vegas. Right. They lost 6-3 to Vegas in the first game. And so Alexander Georgiev has a goals against and average and a save percentage that are both through the roof. And again, for a normal team, you'd be like, perfect. This is the perfect time for us to play them, get in there, get out with 2 points and take advantage of this kind of fumbling team that hasn't gotten on track yet. But for the Islanders, to me, this guarantees an Alexander Georgiev shutout. Like I said this on Twitter, he's going to make 42 saves. He's going to get a shutout, and everybody's going to be like, "Oh, look, the Avalanche are pretty good again." So there you go. They have a bunch of injuries still as well. So, on paper, this is a game that the Islanders could and maybe should win because they're healthier and they're looking for a win as well, and they don't have nearly the problems that the Avalanche are having. But I think for an Islanders fan, this is maybe even more scary than going to face a team that's really, really good. Is facing a team that's a wounded animal right now, and maybe the Islanders just don't have the stomach for taking it to them. So, what do you think about this Avalanche game that's coming up tonight? If you're listening to this on Monday,
yeah, it's terrifying, and it's not terrifying in like the oh my god, the Avalanche are so good,
right?
Like we can't beat them. It's terrifying in that like, god damn it, if the Islanders lose this game, which they are going to be an underdog, a considerable underdog to win. I've got to have to deal with the next 2 days of this shit, right? Like I'm gonna have to deal with a full day Tuesday and a full day Wednesday, and then all day Thursday leading up to the Blues game. And usually the game days come a little easier. Like you start to convince yourself and get excited for the actual game being played. But Tuesday and Wednesday will be brutal. It'll just be not fun which sucks because the beginning of the season is supposed to be the time where hope springs eternal, and you're supposed to lather yourself up in
Right.
optimism, especially when you go into the season feeling really good and the Islanders are healthy. I know Sorokin was dealing with his back injury,
Right.
but like there's nothing else that's like sticking out here that is like a built-in excuse for this team. So that's what's scary. It's not the Avalanche aren't what's scaring me as a team. What's scaring me is just the aftershocks of if they lose. And then like I did say earlier that a win doesn't really change things in terms of how I feel about the last two games, and just the fact that the Islanders are we're supposed to go into this year and put like a huge emphasis on getting off the blocks hot, and then they just failed miserably at doing that. But a win on Monday, as little as I believe it happens, then you're looking at, okay, like they play the Blues. The Blues aren't that game will be a coin flip. They'll be a favorite against the Canadians on that Saturday game when they come back home. And then I think they play the Red Wings after that. So you're looking at, okay, like they could put together a little mini run here, and we're laughing at ourselves for fretting as much as we are after the first two games of the season. But the shoe on the other foot is like they stumble against the Avs.
Yeah.
The coin flip against the Blues doesn't go their way. They struggle against the Habs at home. And then after that Red Wings game, it's a back-to-back against the Devils and Panthers. Like you wait all summer for hockey to come back, and then hockey comes back and you're twisting yourself into knots about stuff that hasn't even happened yet. Like who knows how they play on Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. But in my head, I've already seen this movie enough, and what was so frustrating about the Stars game is that within 6 minutes of that game, I think every Islander fan knew what was going to end up happening there. Yeah. It's like, oh, yep, this is going to be a game where they lose, and it's maybe closer than the score shows. But that doesn't matter because of the way the first game went. So, it's the optimism. I want to get that optimism back, and like the only way the Islanders can give that optimism back to the fan base is by getting 2 points or getting 3 out of the next 4 points or something at minimum, right? Like they need to get on the board here and give us something to be not even like excited about, just be not frustrated about.
Yeah. I mean, there's also a scenario in which they win all 3 of these games. Again, the Avalanche are wounded right now. The Blues are 2-1, but they've scored 11 goals, which is pretty high, but they've also given up 10. So it's like, they're kind of loose right now. And then the Habs, although right now they're in second place in the Atlantic Division, are only 2-1 and look more or less the way they always have, although they've got a fancy new toy in Lane Hudson, who's already wowing everybody. So, you're going to have to watch out for him, obviously. But again, and they shut out the Leafs 1-0 in the first game. So thank you for that, Les Canadiens, our mon ami. But, they're a team that isn't really stacked, packed to the gills with talent. And so, but that's never stopped them from beating up on the Islanders at the worst possible times and at home before. So, on paper, again, these are 3 games that the Islanders could win, but that might be my preseason paper talking, and not the current paper that shows the Islanders in 2 games put up, sort of half an effort. The first game looked more or less like, again, the assholes that they've looked like in the last couple of years. And then in the second game, the effort was better, but they just couldn't get anything going for themselves, which again, just is par for the course. The team has 0 luck. They get 0 bounces and they end up walking out with a 3-0 loss. So this is potentially a very frustrating week, or, we talk next Sunday and they're 3-2 and we're like, or 3-1-1, let's just say. And they're like, oh, okay, maybe the season hasn't been canceled. And then again, you're going to get these geniuses on Twitter that are like, whoa, you see, the season's not canceled. Isn't that great? You guys were all crazy before. Like, dude, I'm allowed to feel how I want to feel. Like, if I'm going to be frustrated about 2 games into the season, I'm allowed. It's okay. Yeah. That's not, it's not against the law. Like, I can do that. And if you're not, good for you. I am, because these 2 games were incredibly frustrating. But like
and
you
they
said,
actually happened, right? Like,
and they happened.
They happened. Like that's all that the Islanders have played 2 games this season. So all being a fan is emotional, and what makes you emotional is the games that get played. Like I don't get emotional about preseason games are training camp games. So like
Yeah.
that's not clouding my judgment here. The entire basis of my fan emotion is on these two games. And if you are leaving those two games without feeling frustrated, boy, I give you a ton of credit because
Yeah.
as I said right off the bat, like there's a very distinct difference between being frustrated and like just kind of exasperated and already kind of exhausted, and there's a big difference between that and being hopeless. Like nobody's saying here like, oh, man, like the Islanders should not have signed Bo Horvat, Matt Barzal to 8-year contracts. Like they should have blown it up and been tanking and done what the Sharks doing. Like nobody's saying that. Everyone's just saying, yeah, those games were not fun to deal with afterwards at all.
Right.
So now, and I've got no idea, and nobody has any idea how the next 3 will go. Nobody,
Right.
for any team that is. So all we have to go off of is what has actually happened. And what has actually happened is that the Islanders blew a game in which Max Siplikov scored his first NHL goal in 13 seconds with 2 minutes left in the game, and they still found a way to lose it. And then they lost a frustrating game against Dallas, and the Rangers scored a goal off of a dump in. So like it's okay to be frustrated with how the season started.
Definitely. And I mean, you look around the rest of the league, and there are weird things happening again because it's just the first week. The last year's Stanley Cup finalists are combined 1-4. The Panthers are 1-2. The Oilers are 0-2. Things are pretty bad in Edmonton already. The Sabres are 1-3. They flew all the way to Europe and came back with 2 losses, and then lost again when they came back over here. What else? The Hurricanes are 0-1. The Caps are 0-1. The Avalanche, we talked about, are 0-2. The Predators made all those big splashy moves in the summertime and are 0-2. So, the Canucks are 0-2. They have 2 overtime losses. So, I mean, there are situations around the league that, again, there's 80 games left, and nothing's out of control right now. And there are teams that are on top and teams that are on the bottom, and it happens. But, when you lost the games the way the Islanders did, and in a familiar fashion, after a lot of excitement and enthusiasm over the summer, it's incredibly frustrating. So if people are mad, let them be mad. If you're not, great, congratulations. We'll see what happens this week against the Avalanche, Blues, and Canadians. Please beat the. Oh, the other thing too, before we move on, is that Canadians game at home is possibly when we'll first see Ilya Sorokin. Maybe I don't think they'll play him in Colorado. With Varley, having obviously played in Colorado before. The altitude, they probably wouldn't do that. I could see him playing maybe in St. Louis, but I feel like they'll want him at home against the Canadians. If he has a bad game and does not look right, and they lose, and maybe hopefully they haven't lost the 2 previous ones, next week's episode might be very, very bad. So this week, it's not a make or break week, but it feels a little bit like a make or break week.
Yeah.
Like I'm just,
No, it's not a make or break week, but if the fact that we're asking ourselves if it's a make or break week
is bad.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what nobody wanted. Nobody wanted that. Nobody wanted to be sitting here, and while you're even saying those words, being like, I'm being overreactive, I'm being crazy, I'm being a typical Twitter fan or whatever. Like, but yeah, we wouldn't be if the Islanders had just, after Max Siplikov brought the house down, they kept it down. Like they kept the positive energy going.
Yeah.
So
would have been very helpful. Okay. There is one thing new with the Islanders this year, and it is that Bo Horvat is an alternate captain right now. He has an A on his jersey, and the team, made a little bit of kind of a very subdued announcement, I would say, about this. Honestly, I ignored it because to me, Bo always felt like he always had an A on his chest. He just carries himself in a certain way that looks like that. But you dove into this, and you came across something that you thought was really funny about this. And now I'm a little bit mad at myself for not engaging with this when it first happened. But what's the deal with Bo and his A and kind of how they gave it to him?
Yeah, if Patrick was to be believed, he got asked about what the process was for naming the captain and this whole thing, and he just said it just kind of happened.
Nelly will be assistant, Bo will be an assistant, and then Anders will be the captain.
Was that your decision? Was that a player decision? What kind of went into that?
I guess it had just happened like this. I mean, it was just natural. We have so many good leaders on this club. So, talking with Lou, and we felt like he was ready to he was the captain, I think, in Vancouver, and he was ready to step up there. But, I mean, did we have meetings over this? No, it just happened naturally, and then but I mean, is there a lot of guys that could have been assistant? Yes.
And I found that so Islanders in a good way. Like I thought it was great. Like I hate to when did we start using the term leadership group?
Yeah, we talked about this. Definitely it was a Leafs thing. I think
Leafs thing, right? Yeah,
it has to be. It has
right.
To
so
be.
like,
Yeah.
but they set that standard, and like all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, we got to start doing it too. And the Sabres put out this like big Twitter post with like, and I think there's a difference between naming someone a captain of the team. Like, you want to go all out and have a press conference and bring your former captain to that press conference with his kids wearing the new captain's jersey. By all means, go ahead and do it. But like other teams are doing like these big kind of to-dos about it, and the Islanders are just like, oh no, he showed up one day and had A's on, and there weren't like 8 beat writers being like, oh, there's Bo Horvat leading his first stretch as an alternate captain. It just it just happens. And I think it's such a good kind of, I wish I could grab Pierre LeBrun by the hand and walk him to Northwell Ice Rink and be like, you see, like there was no white smoke billowing out of this place when the decision was made. Bo Horvat wasn't like going to sleep one night and woke up and was told he was a captain and like sobbed into his cereal because it's such a meaningful thing. It's these things, it's just like a totally normal thing that the team did, and it happened very normally. There was no, it wasn't like Princess Diana marrying Prince Charles with trumpets or anything. It just these things can, and they usually do happen very normally without the all the bells and whistles that you guys think that it is going on in the movies that you guys are playing in your head in the NHL. So I just thought it was so funny and such a good change of pace from the performative. Like there's nothing performative about the Islanders, and that's part of the reason I think we all like it. Like the Islanders as much as we do. Like it's very, there's sports, so there's part of it is performative. I get that, but compared to like if you look around the league, there's very little of that stuff that's like substance over style. Like the Islanders are substance over style, and so many teams and leagues and like the way they market themselves, and it's the other way around. It's style over substance. And look at William Nylander's cool suit that he's wearing, or like stuff like that. Like there's very little of that with the Islanders.
Can I ask you something? Did the Islanders do like a sort of a red carpet runway thing before the first game of the season? Because every other team seems to have done that. The Stars did that last night. The Predators did that a couple of nights earlier. I guarantee the Leafs did that. I think maybe the Bruins did that. And it's not new. Like I've said, I mean, especially Nashville, they always seem to do this kind of thing. But like, I don't remember the Islanders like walking to UBS Arena on this carpet surrounded by all these fans and like people taking pictures. It's like going to the Oscars, And I don't think the Islanders do that. They just
No, they didn't.
Normal way.
They just announced everybody player by player, and that was it, and got on with it. That the Canadians had a symphony, and the symphony wasn't enough. They also had a rock band to back up the symphony. And I'll be honest, like I don't mind it from the Canadians because that's just kind of who they are. Like they are the over the top franchise. But like when the other teams start to do it, it's like just you can if it's part of like the fabric of your city and your identity as a organization, like go for it, like lean into it. But at the same time, like if you're forcing it, we can tell. And I do appreciate that the Islanders don't ever force it. Like the Bailey thing was not a forced thing. It was just, here's Josh Bailey putting a lantern on a table on a lighthouse, and that was it. There was no 2-minute Twitter video about the lighthouse. By the way, the tribute video to Bailey was great.
Yeah.
Or it was. Did they show that on TV?
They showed the whole thing.
Yeah, it was awesome, and it was what I loved about it was such a reminder that guy had seen every nook and cranny of the Islanders experience.
Yeah,
from being drafted, being booed basically because he was drafted, playing his first goal. The first person to hug him after he scored was Mike Comrie. Like to go from that to Matt Barzal and Bo Horvat is just that journey is just so funny. So Bailey, man,
Yeah.
he's definitely seen some shit around here and stuck with
Right.
it.
And I found it funny that he like it's this whole big thing, this big ridiculous lighthouse. Well, by the way, the lantern thing they should lose. It should be like one of those big sort of power switches. I don't know if that's how lighthouses work, but I can imagine. I assume it's something along those lines. Like they push the power lever, like from an old Frankenstein movie. It should be something like that, as opposed to the lantern, or make a set lantern and then you push a button and the lantern lights and then the lighthouse lights. Something along those lines, I think would probably be better. Or make it a big ship's wheel and they spin the wheel and then the smoke comes out of the lighthouse. Something like that. But I found it funny that his excitement level was exactly the same as it was when he would like score a big goal after a playoff game and give the quietest, most boring interview you'd possibly ever heard. His face never changed. He waved to the crowd. Face never changed. He lights a lighthouse.
He's our
Face
guy.
never changed. It's very Josh Bailey.
And to add to that, I'm pretty sure, and I had a good look at him and from the way I was sitting, and before they did the lighthouse thing, like the lights were down, they were playing some music and like a video on the jumbotron, and all of a sudden you started to hear like murmurs of the Josh Bailey song.
Yeah.
And I looked over and it was the 329 crowd singing, and he was telling them to. It looked like he was telling them to quiet down, at least from what I was saying, because I think he was thinking like, "Oh, don't give away the big surprise." And that's what I looked over here, which was so Bailey, and it's just great. He hasn't officially announced his retirement. I'm assuming that was what it was, and then you had Cal Clark. Like the Shadow team is just incredible right now, right? This is like the 1970s Habs version of a Shadow team with Bailey lighting a lighthouse. Cal Clutterbuck is in the MSG studio with two other members of the Shadow team, and Corey Schneider and Thomas Hickey. Then you have Matt Martin, who's still on a PTO, traveling with the team, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Molson appears every once in a while on the MSG.
Yeah, Molson pops up. It's and then the other thing that really stuck out from the home opener was and every team does it, like when the players are warming up, like their families are down at ice level in like the Zamboni entrance. Man, you look down there where the Islanders kids and like wives gather for warm-ups.
Yeah.
Standing room only, man. There are just so many kids on this team, and that's without Bailey, Clutterbuck, and Martin right now. It's so funny that these guys, they're just little Islander kids everywhere. But yeah, that's why I feel so upset with or disappointed that they lost that game on Thursday night, because it really was a really Islanders event, and I think the team itself is doing such a good job of like leaning into the Islanders' identity rather than shying away from it, which I thought they did for so long. For so many years, like the Islanders were afraid to be the Islanders with like their game presentation, with their promotional nights, with the stuff that they like the lighthouse that they used around the arena. Like they tried too hard to be just like a normal team. Like they would see the Dallas Stars or the Tampa Bay Lightning do something, they'd be like, "Oh, we can try a poor man's version of whatever that was," and it just wouldn't work because, as we said before, like the Islanders we're not a fan base that wants performative shit. We want it to be real and to represent us, and I think that the entire kind of team and organization of the people who do game ops and marketing and all that understand, like, oh no, these fans actually, they want to celebrate Randy Robitaille. Like they do, like they want to be there and acknowledge that they lived through that stuff, that their first year ever watching was with the Fishermen, or they saw this team lose 10-0 one night in front of nobody at Nassau Coliseum. Like that's part of the fan experience. So leaning into those scars as much as like the good memories is important, and you don't have to do it heavy-handedly, but just pretending like that never happened is the wrong move. And I do appreciate the Islanders are giving fans credit in that way with how they present the game and the team, and it's nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think they do. I don't know. I think they do an okay job. I think they lean into the family thing, which is probably for the best. Sometimes we really do, and all due respect to the Malkin family and all they've done for the Islanders. I really do think we need to get the Empire State Building out of the
Yeah.
pregame and the goals stuff. Like I get it. You guys, you own it. If I own the Empire State Building, you goddamn right, I'd be proud of owning the Empire State Building. I totally understand it. But it is such a break in the sort of I guess I'm trying to suspend my disbelief for this, and it doesn't work. Like it breaks the illusion, and I just don't like it. Put something else in there. Buy something else.
Buy the
and
big
put
duck.
It there. Buy the big duck.
No, the big duck can't be as
Right.
expensive as the Empire State Building, and I would agree. I would argue it's more culturally impactful than
buy the Montauk Lighthouse. Buy something. I don't know, anything. Adventureland. Do something, because it's just it ain't working. And again, I understand why it's there. We get it. It really doesn't need to be there. So that thing I would get rid of. And I do like the lighthouse thing on this. But the only bad thing about the lighthouse in there is that they had to move Paul Cartier and his organ. So I hope Paul's okay with the new location. That the guy deserves a good spot. So I hope it's a good seat. I'm sure he understands. But I did some people were like, wait, hold on a second. Is that where the organ was? Like, oh yeah, they moved here. Oh, okay, that's fine. I totally forgot as we were talking about players, and I don't want to make a whole big thing about this because we're going to wrap up soon. I mentioned before I wanted to talk about Oliver Wahlstrom when we talked about the Dallas game, and of course I totally forgot. But in 2 games now as a fourth liner, it seems like this is not going to work out. He doesn't seem to have the mentality for it. He did have one scoring chance in that game against the Stars, and I'm at my wit's end with this guy. And if he's looking to get a new start somewhere, that's fair. I would, I think we could all agree that that'd probably be the best for him, but he's not putting himself in the best light. So, I mean, again, you were there live watching him. You watched him last night. Like, what are your thoughts on Wahlstrom, the fourth line experiment? The funny thing is, I don't want to see Julien Gauthier or Pierre Engvall on that line either. So I guess I'm kind of stuck. I have become what I hate the most. The guy who's like, do something. Well, what do you want me to do? Well, I don't know. I hate that. But so far this has been even more frustrating than the usual Oliver Wahlstrom experience.
Yeah, it is frustrating because he's just not on the same. He's not singing the same song as Kyle McLean and Casey Cizikas.
Yeah.
And it's very much a square peg in a round hole situation. And you know what else is strange is he's not on the second power play unit. Like they had Holmstrom there, then they had Pajot there. So if you're not going to use him on the power play where he can unleash his best asset, which is his shot, then I don't really know what the game plan is for him. And Thomas Hickey brought up a good point about the Islanders power play is that like they don't really have a one-time threat. Like they have Horvat in the bumper, but
I remember him saying that.
Yeah, and I think and the more I thought about it, it's true. Like the problem is like Ryan Pulock should be that one-timer threat, but
we've had this discussion many times. He should be, but he never hits the net.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a little tricky there, but so with the way that they're going to have to create scoring opportunities on the power play, it's going to be puck movement and Noah Dobson had Noah Dobson really had a very Noah Dobson start to the season. 2 points in the first game.
Right.
So he's a 82 point pace, but he's also on his data plan is through the roof right now because it really looks like he's skating around once again with his cell phone out and playing a game with checking his text messages on the bench. And so he went to the room. And Brendan's like, yeah, the train in Dallas. He's like, he went to the room. Brendan said the trainer didn't follow him in, so it doesn't seem too much of an issue at all. I could think about was all the jokes about how he's just going to quickly update his Be Real or something in the locker room. But so that is concerning about Wahlstrom. Is like he could also be that one-timer threat, but he doesn't deserve to be on either power play unit with the way he's going. It's tough, man. And one thing I've noticed too about the bottom 6 generally, not just the fourth line, is, and I can't believe I'm gonna say this. This is where I kind of miss Pierre Engvall. Is none of them carry the puck well. Like there's nobody on Lee, Pajot, Holmstrom, McLean, Cizikas, Wahlstrom. You could think, okay, you hit one of them in stride, they're just going to skate it through the neutral zone without much of an issue, get it deep. Like at least Engvall, you give him the puck because he's quick and he's big and he's kind of graceful, like can get through the neutral zone with the puck on his stick. The other guys, it's it's pretty clear. Like they're just going to get to the red line and dump it, or the blue line and dump it in and go to work, which can work. But you need somebody to be able to move to transport the puck with it on a stick if those other options aren't available, or to change a pace or whatever. So that is concerning. But I'm imagining we'll see Julien Gauthier on Monday night against the Avalanche, and he probably scores and also has 2 bad icings and misses like a defensive assignment or something, the whole experience. But what to and also like to go into that theme of being robbed joy, and to being robbed of the optimism that we had. It felt good on on Thursday night, being like, you know what? Like the only kind of hole that the Islanders need to figure out here is that 12th forward spot between Wahlstrom. Like someone needs to just step up and take that spot.
Right.
Whereas in other years, it's like, man, the Islanders need to find who's going to be the first line winger and the second line winger between Hudson. It's like you felt good about that being the biggest problem that the Islanders seem to have, and then
they need a whole third line. Who are they going to find 3 whole guys to play on a line?
But still, now like that problem is glaring. So it's tough, man, because Oliver Wahlstrom is an Islander. We want him to succeed, but I just don't even he had a chance yesterday against the Stars. A turnover, someone turned the puck over like right on his stick, right? And he took a shot. Yeah, and like he had a wide open chance to. And I'm not saying he's got to score it, but he shot it right into Jake Ottinger's chest.
Yes.
And you just got to make those if you're Oliver Wahlstrom at this point of your career, you're not. This isn't 4 years ago where you're like, all right, like I'm happy he got that opportunity and he got it on net quickly and whatever. No, at this point, like, man, you're at a crossroads. Like you gotta make those count one way or another. Maybe it's a big rebound or something, and he's just not doing even that. So it's tough to watch.
It is tough to watch, and I'm so frustrated that I feel like he might be bringing Cizikas and McLean down because they don't seem to be in sync either. And you said that that they're before that Wahlstrom wasn't playing the same song as them. To me, right now, McLean and Cizikas are not playing the same song either, but at least they're in the same genre of music. So like, if Cizikas is the Ramones, then McLean is the Clash. And like, it's both punk. They're both punk bands, but they're different kinds of punk bands. Right. And so like, we've got to get them to kind of play the same song or get on the same page at least. And whereas Wahlstrom is, I don't know, he's a flock of seagulls or something. I don't even know what's going on over there. So he's got to figure it out. And again, it's about making the most of your opportunities, and he just hasn't. And that's kind of been the theme so far with him. And again, as I've been saying, there's 80 games left, and so we don't want to sound too doom and gloom here, but man, that first game was really, really, really the worst possible way to get started. We got to stop losing home openers. We can't just be like throwing up our hands and be like, ha ha, they never win those. Win them, please. I mean, starting next season, obviously, we got to start winning. Okay, we're going to close this up real quick before we get to our final notes here. Couple of things coming up this week over here. We have this episode. Our first in-season mailbag episode is going to happen on Wednesday. So I'm going to put out the call for questions on Tuesday. We're going to record on Wednesday. That's for Country Club tier members only at patreon.com/islandersanxiety. So if you want to ask a question, sign up for the Country Club tier and get that in starting on Tuesday. The first episode of Weird Islanders, the podcast, season 4, it will release on Friday. And let me tell you, we have been recording episodes all along the end of summer here and into this month. And these are instant classics. I cannot wait for people to hear these. And we're recording one this week that we're going to put in a fast turnaround. And that's going to be our season premiere coming up on Friday. I really hope you guys are excited. I'm going to put out a little thing on Monday to kind of tease some of the players we're going to be talking about. So look for that. I'll put that up on the Patreon as well. It's just a picture basically, but I can't wait for these to come out because these have been great. We've had so much fun recording these all summer that we got started real early, and I can't wait. And so that's going to come out. The first episode is on October 18th on Friday, and then every other Friday after that is going to be a new episode all the way towards the end of the season. Okay, one other thing real quick. Just want to shout out some people. We got a lot of notes you and I both did on our 300th episode last week. Thank you all very much. special shout out to everybody at Lighthouse Hockey in the comments for congratulating us. Thank you so much. Obviously, it's our home, and we love you guys. But I got a great note from a listener in the UK named Ian, who drops his kids off and then listens to us. And it made me think about, you and I both have heard from a lot of listeners in Europe, whether they're in the UK, whether they're in Sweden, whether they're in Switzerland, whether they're in Czechia. We hear from people from all over the place, and we really, really appreciate you guys. I don't know how you ended up being Islanders fans. I don't know why you would do this to yourselves so far away from Long Island. We're stuck here, but you guys could have chosen anybody, and somehow the Islanders found you. And we are very thankful and grateful that you have made us a part of your Islanders routine so far away from Long Island, and we really appreciate it. So Ian and everybody else listening to us in Europe, thank you so much for listening, and we really appreciate it. Any special thoughts of yours on some of the well wishes we've gotten for episode 300 and beyond?
Yeah, I kind of just was humbled and surprised at how many people had reached out and said congratulations, and that it was a really cool accomplishment, because I generally just didn't think that I would hear. I just didn't think it would resonate, or not that it would resonate isn't the right word. Just, I think a lot of people, as you said, like the last episode, and I thought this way about podcasts too. It's something that seems so simple, and getting to 300 episodes talking about the Islanders for an hour a week shouldn't be celebrated. And I don't think it's obviously it's not on the grand scheme of things, but I do think people appreciate. I didn't realize how many people do appreciate the what it does take from you and I, which is that we do have families. We got to hunker down for an hour and a half every Sunday. Longer for you because you do all the editing and all the other stuff. So yeah, it was really nice to hear again, and probably added to part of the reasons we are so excited for the season, just to have the Islanders rip that from us in true Islanders anxiety fashion, and know that, yeah, we got to celebrate that episode going into the year. And I think it was a very good idea on your part to program it that way, because if it was this episode, we'd just be like, are we even going to get to episode 301 after that? I don't know, because that was tough to sit through. But yeah, it was really nice. And on that note, to Ian and all the folks who listen overseas, it's so fun to listen to hear from people from who found us on other parts of the world, because it blows. I used to always get asked, when, especially a decade plus ago, when the Premier League wasn't as big as it was, like, oh, how did you end up being an Everton fan? Why Everton? All this stuff from people in England. And my answer is simple. Like, it was just a kind of kismet I had a coach when I was younger who was an Everton fan, and my family almost moved to England in 1998. So he told me I had to pick a team, and I was like, all right, I'll be Everton. And, but like, I am bewildered when I hear why people became Islander fans, because whether you became an Islander fan 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, like you're just taking on so much of this baggage that you just don't need to in your life. And with the hope that someday it's worth it. And there's really no sign here that it's going to be ever. Like, there's no light at the end of the tunnel just yet. Right. So I always find it so funny, and also want to tip my cap to the New York Islanders in Brazil.
Oh yes,
Twitter account because they're fired up and running, and had some funny things from the first two games. So
definitely. Definitely. Yeah. Shout out Islanders fans, Brazil and Argentina as well. That's my favorite there, because I can say the words, and my wife is a Spanish teacher. So when they tweet something in Espanol, and I will say it to her, and she'll kind of translate it back to me. She's like, oh, that's pretty good. I'm like, yeah, well, it's Islanders fans, Argentina. So somehow the Islanders have met, despite games like game 1 against Utah, they have managed to still make fans all across the world, and that's a pretty amazing thing. And the fact that we're part of this community is also pretty amazing. So shout out to everybody, and thanks for all of the great well wishes. Okay, we're gonna wrap this up, and we'll come back next week. Become a member of patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety for ad-free episodes and bonus content, or join for free to get announcements and our weekly release calendar. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible.com, iHeartRadio, YouTube Music, and wherever you get your podcasts. And please leave us a review where you can. Our theme song is Morning Haze by Family Dinner. Listen to more of their music on Bandcamp and look out for their new album, God Looks Out for Fools, available on Spotify right now. Read Lighthouse Hockey every single day for your most up-to-date Islanders news and discussion. Islanders Anxiety podcasts are part of the Fans First Sports Network. Learn more at fansfirstsports.com. Shop vintageicehockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. Mike, where can everybody find you on Twitter?
The Big League Basket with 2 E's.
Follow Mike at the Big League Basket. Read and listen to his work at Action Network and read his work at New York Post. Any final thoughts on games 1 and 2 of the 24-25 season, or games 3, 4, and 5, which are coming up this week?
Not too much more to add. I just really hope that that we can have our first happy episode of the season when we recongregate next weekend. But it's, as I keep saying, I think that there's a huge difference between being frustrated and being hopeless, and hopefully that we can laugh at how we overreacted to the first 2 games of the season at some point later on the season. But until then, it's just I'll be terrified.
Definitely going to be happy to be wrong if we look back on this episode and laugh about it. I welcome that as much as I possibly can. So Islanders, the ball's in your court. Please make us feel silly about how this episode turned out, and we'll find out how that works out next week. All right, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon, and remember, Weird Islanders podcast this Friday. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later. Bye bye.